Bishop Terry Lavalley is our guest at the round table. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. It's good to be here with you.
You are the spiritual leader for about 100,000 Catholics across northern New York?
About 100,000, that's right.
Covering a huge swath of territory, 8 counties in all?
That's right, that's right.
Ogdensburg, one of the largest dioceses in New York State?
Geographically it is, but certainly population-wise we're the smallest.
Which must be a challenge. You're spread across such a large territory. You have probably about 100 parishes, I think?
With parishes and missions, just about 100, that's right.
And yeah. But such a large territory to try
that's
to cover.
That's right, from the shores of Lake Ontario to the shores of Lake Champlain, from the Canadian border down well into the Adirondacks.
Is that part of the reason you're doing this census project? Tell us a little bit about what it is and why you're doing it.
Sure. As you know, I'm from the Diocese of Ogdensburg, born and raised here in Clinton County. And soon after I was named bishop, I wanted to be able to focus my ministry. We have many, many gifts here, and we have limited resources. So I decided to appoint what we refer to as an envisioning team. And part of the responsibility of the envisioning team, we met monthly for about 13 months, was to listen to the folks in the pews. And so I held 13 listening sessions throughout northern New York, where I just sat and listened, and with no response. We had 3 or 4 focused questions for the folks, and well over 1,000 people came to listen to their concerns about the church in the North Country. So we listened to everything that came in. Much came via email, the internet, collated it all, and determined that there are 3 basic priorities that we need to focus on, and each priority had a goal with a determined date that the goal would be met. And one of those goals was to conduct a diocesan-wide census, where we would visit every home in the North Country, and for various reasons. And so that's part of the envisioning process, was to do precisely what we are about right now throughout the North Country. So
this has started, this undertaking is underway. You have hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers going door to door.
That's right.
In every community across the North Country.
That's right.
And are they going to every home, or are they going just to homes of Catholics?
No, the intention was to hit every home. Our data is dated in many instances, and people move, come and go, and so we thought it would be important that we hit the streets and basically stop to every home, and we had I established a committee. Headed by Sister St. Joseph, Sister Shirley Ann Brown. She had a wonderful committee where we went around basically giving instructions to all the pastors and the parish visitors, the do's and the don'ts, and she did an excellent job. And so we've come up with in the thousands of parish visitors, like I said, from throughout the diocese, who have begun the parish visits.
That must be about 500,000 homes altogether if you're going to try to hit just about every home.
Well, I think if you look at the census, we're pushing 500,000 population, total population. Mm-hmm. So there wouldn't be that many homes per se. But
and is it mostly spiritual? Are you hoping to reach out to them, invite them to the church, or at the same time are you looking to assist them if you find families in need or elderly in need?
That and more. When I determined that we were going to do the census, I shared a couple of years now, springs ago, I had read a book by our first bishop, Bishop Wadhams, and in it was a fascinating book. And in it he said, I intend to visit every home in this widespread North Country. I'm going to find myself a good pony. And yes, sirree, I will know every man, woman, and child. And so, I said, if he can do it on horseback, we should be able to make those visits, not just the priests, but all the folks, to let the people in the North Country know that the church is alive and well. And so not only is it an opportunity to gather data, update our parish information for pastoral planning purposes, But it's also an opportunity for the folks to step out of the door and visit our neighbor and let them know that the church is alive and well, determining whether there are needs within their family. And I've heard some wonderful stories already of the visitors coming back. Some, I think our nature, we've been sort of like shy, keep to ourselves, independently minded folk. Some are coming back, can you give me some more? Can you give me some more names, more places to visit? People wanting to know, what do I need to do? I've been out of the church so long, or what do I need? How do I approach the parish? I'd like to have my child baptized. My kids aren't catechized. What do I need to do? I had a previous marriage. What do I need to do in order to have the church look at the marriage? And certainly, since I've determined that there will be no more fees for annulments of the Diocese of Ogdensburg, even in the short time, it's effective June 1, but even the folks are coming now. I've heard wonderful stories of people now are feeling a little bit more comfortable to come in. And again, these are results of the visits. Now, granted, some visits, no thank you, it's to be expected. And we're not there to push anything. We're knocking on the doors with a smile on our face and a prayer in our heart, asking if there's something the church can do. And again, it's important for pastoral planning purposes, given the scarcity of priests we have in the diocese, and really given the tremendous resource we have of our parishioners, people who are well trained in different fields, people who have been schooled in the faith. Many have participated in our Formation for Ministry program, and so they are qualified to do many, and they presently are many ministries in the parish. And so, but we need to have some raw data in order to make sure that our planning is well done, and this is all part of the reason why we are doing this.
And this is happening now. It's happening at different times throughout the whole North Country, but here in Clinton County, it's happening now, April, May, into early June.
That's right. As I mentioned earlier, we've established all these goals for different priorities that have been set, and this particular goal of the parish census was that I would hope that between October of 2014 and the fall of this year, the parish census work would have been completed. And for instance, some parishes over in St. Lawrence County started earlier. I mentioned Sister Shirley Ann Brown. Well, before she went out to give those instruction to the people in the different parishes, she wanted to do it herself in her own parish to see what were some of the snags or some of the obstacles, what works, what didn't work. And so her parishes are very much have been conducted. Some of the follow-up work needs to be done. So different parishes are at different points in their census work.
So what do you do with this data once you get it? You did mention that it will be used, obviously, the shortage of priests is something we've seen for a number of years. This diocese, no different than many others. Number of priests retiring and fewer and fewer. Will this look at what parishes may need more services?
Certainly. Interestingly, census is nothing new to the Catholic Church. When I was a seminarian, my summer work was to do parish census. Now times have changed. Folks aren't home like when they used to be home. But census is always important for the local parish to know who's received the sacraments, who hasn't received the sacraments, to know if there's some kind of social outreach that's necessary, people in need. And so as the parish continues to update their census, you're able to make decisions about the resources locally that you're able to expend, not only financial, but with the women and men that are working in the parish. When it comes time to celebrate marriages or or any of the sacraments. In our church, we go back to the baptismal certificate, the baptismal record to see, you know, who's been baptized, who needs to be making their first communion. So it's a necessary instrument that the local pastor has in the parish. Ultimately, his responsibilities for the salvation of the souls entrusted to him, and the sacraments, being a sacramental church, are extremely important. And so that information is important locally. It's important, the bigger picture, as bishop, I'm interested in it because we need to make, as you alluded to, decisions given the priest shortage that we have currently in our diocese. One of the other goals that have been established as part of our envisioning process was to establish a Living Stones Planning Committee. That goal has been met. The committee has been established. In fact, they have been going since last September, and they have their own listening sessions. In fact, they were just in the Plattsburgh area within the past week. Again, in fact, Monsignor Dupree was telling me how he was so pleased with the numbers of the faithful that came, and the opportunity for this diocesan planning committee to listen to the folks, in this case, in the Clinton deanery, and with the data that's collected through the census, as well as getting the feedback from the folks, we're able to make decisions regarding assignments. We have, absolutely wonderful priests in the Diocese of Ogdensburg who have worked so hard, well beyond the age of retirement in some cases, ministering to the faithful. They love their church, they love their people. More and more are permanent deacons who are a tremendous asset to the Church of the North Country. We'll be finding their roles expanded. Religious, lay people. But we need to know who they are, where they are, in order to best determine where they can serve the church most effectively in the North Country. And again, the census will be a great tool in helping us do that.
And you mentioned the assignments just a couple of weeks ago. You announced a couple of priests were retiring, and that there would be some reassignments of priests, which is quite common in the Catholic Church for them to move from parish to parish.
That's right. We have a priest personnel board that meets, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, but most often you'll see transfers taking place about this time of the year. It's especially difficult these days because we have the need remains great, but the individual priests are not as plentiful as they used to be. And so it's a real challenge.
And you mentioned deacons are doing more, lay people within the church are doing more and taking on more responsibilities. Are you to the point where other dioceses in New York and certainly some other states have gotten to the point where they've had to look at mergers and because of the shortage of priests? In the North Country, is it in that?
Oh, absolutely. Mergers, linkages. For instance, just here in Clinton County, since I've been bishop, we've had to close St. Joseph's in Cooperville. And now that it's an oratory, and Father Clyde Lewis is responsible for the salvation of the souls of the folks who attended St. Joseph's, as well as St. Mary's in Champlain and St. Patrick's in Rouse's Point. Same thing here in the Plattsburgh area, St. Mary's of the Lake in Cumberland Head. Now, responsibility for the pastoral care of the folks that attended St. Mary's are now with Father Canan at St. John the Baptist.
Are we likely to see more? Or are you
linkages are inevitable, and that's part of the responsibility of this Living Stones Planning Committee. As they go from deanery to deanery to listen to parishioners, that's part of the goal. Looking what are we going to need to do in the future.
You mentioned Father Lewis. St. Mary's in Champlain has had a tough few months after the fire. The old St. Mary's Academy burned back in January, and the decision made now to tear down what's left of the building and build a new parish center. So there will be a rebirth and a new building. Obviously, the school closed back in 2012, but it was such a vital link to the community, not only used by the diocese and the St. Mary's Church, but obviously many in the community also using that building, and will now look forward to a new parish center.
That's right.
St. Mary's also in Ticonderoga, unfortunately, also has had a rough year. The school fire that they had last fall for the entire school year. Kids have been at a couple of churches in the community. The community's really rallied around those folks.
The community has, the diocese has, the whole area has, the state has. I'm thinking of the Knights of Columbus. I went down to, as you know, that fire occurred, I think it was the first week of school in September. I was able to go down, and it was so inspiring to see what the students, what the faculty, what the parents, and the pastor and Sister Sharon were doing. You know, they had the T-shirt that said St. Mary Strong, and boy, have they been strong. You mentioned the community. Immediately, the Methodist Church opened up their parish center for school, and throughout the year they've been wonderful. And the kids continue to go to school there, and the plan, of course, is this fall to be back at St. Mary's. But that's church for me. That's living Christ for me, to see the heartbreak and see what came out of that heartbreak. It was just a coming together of the community, which was just phenomenal.
People of all faiths coming together to help everyone
absolutely.
out. And as you mentioned, they're hoping to reopen by this fall.
That's right. When I had celebrated Mass there, soon after the fire, after Mass, people were coming in from Vermont, bringing school supplies, and of course Catholic schools throughout the Diocese of Ogdensburg did the same thing, and the Knights of Columbus, and as I mentioned, the Methodists had their own benefit, I think it was a spaghetti supper for St. Mary, so it was really heartwarming.
To the census, talking a little bit about the census again, were you inspired in part to do that by Pope Francis?
Pope Francis is my kind of pope, in the sense that he's the kind of guy that's not afraid to get his hands dirty, so to speak, being with the people. And he speaks constantly about our needing to have an encounter, a personal encounter with Jesus Christ. And through that encounter, we can't help but go out. He referred to the church as a hospital for sinners. The church doors open. He said, you don't wait for them to come to you. You go to them. That's what Jesus said, go out and baptize. He didn't say, stay home and wait for them to come to you. And so absolutely, in so many ways, the Holy Father has been an inspiration and certainly a real shepherd for me.
What has he meant to the Catholic Church since becoming Pope?
I think what he's meant to the Church, in every year and every time, in fact, I was reflecting this with some priests recently, the Spirit seems to provide us with the kind of man, the kind of leader that we need, whether it's St. John the 23rd, John Paul II, or Benedict. The time is right for the kind of person that leads us. And I think with a Pope Francis, we have a humble servant of God that continually beckons us to go out, to reach out. And it's time. It's time. And that's what he's meant to me, and I think that's what we're seeing happening, not only in the Diocese of Ogdensburg, but I think globally.
He is coming here to the United States in September. A few scheduled stops in Washington, New York, Philadelphia, meeting at the White House. Will you get a chance to meet up with him or to attend any of his masses?
Yes, I plan on being in Washington, in New York, and in Philadelphia, different events.
Have you met him before?
I have not met him.
What will this be like for you?
It'll be certainly a graced moment for me. again, you look at the man, and it tells on his face he's in love with Jesus, and he's in love with Jesus' brothers and sisters throughout the world, and that's so inspiring. Cutting through everything, that's what it's about. Flesh on flesh.
What do you hope his visit here in the U.S. will do or accomplish?
I think and I hope that it will bring a renewed vigor to the faith of those who come to church every Sunday. But more than that, he'll be a source of hope for those who at times are confused among us, for lost, and those who wonder where God is in all of this, and those who have perhaps preconceptions of the church. I think he can be, and he has been, and he will be a real source of hope for all of us. And if there's any virtue that we need these days, it's the virtue of hope, and that's certainly one of the gifts that I think he'll share with us when he comes.
Do you think a large contingent from the North Country will be making the pilgrimage to some of these?
We have
masses?
our Family Life Department under the leadership of Father Lucia, who's from Altona, and our Family Life Director, Steve Tartaglia. We've organized, we started with 3 buses plus, and we're up to 4, and the requests continue to come in. So yes, we plan on having a rather large contingent from the Diocese of Ogdensburg.
I imagine as we get into August, you will probably need a few more probably as
right.
well. And it starts getting a lot of attention. You are one of the first bishops, certainly from Ogdensburg, I would imagine, to be on Facebook.
Oh.
I may be wrong, but I...
Could be. Could be.
Do you use social media a lot, or are you trying to use it more to reach out to people?
I try to use it more if I can sit at my desk long enough. I'm on the road a lot, so it makes it more difficult to sit and or use my iPad. I use it some, not enough. I will grant you, not enough.
Do you think it's a way that, do you see that as a way to reach more young Catholics?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our own diocesan webpage, our North Country Catholic Facebook, and so we are trying all avenues to get the good word out.
And when you visit your webpage, I noticed last summer there was this photograph of you blessing these large solar panels.
Oh, yes.
You now have solar panels in your backyard of your residence.
I do.
Tell us about the decision to go solar.
It certainly is an opportune time to ask about it, because any day now the Holy Father will be promulgating his encyclical on the environment. So we are certainly anticipating that. But we have one of our retired priests, Father Bayette, who lives in Loon Lake, has been off the grid for years and is very, very strong proponent of good stewardship of the earth, and wonderful conversations with him. I met, in fact, at his residence with a diocesan committee on the environment, and so we talked, and I listened, and I listened more, and we talked some more about the possibilities. And so I just determined that let's begin with my own residence and see whether that's something that's doable.
So it obviously saves money, but at the same time, reducing the carbon footprint is something that's important.
That's right. And I had the land, I had the space to do it. And so I did. And the more I studied, finding out some of these municipalities in the North Country are really moving in that direction. So certainly as the encyclical is promulgated, it'll give me another occasion to write about it and to encourage not only our parishioners but our pastors to consider what they might be able to do to move in that direction as well.
Do you see perhaps parishes or the headquarters in Ogdensburg going solar and following in your footsteps?
It's always possible. I would encourage, where possible, where feasible, to be good stewards, and if that's one area that we can be a good steward is going solar, then certainly would strongly encourage that.
Bishop Lavalley, we really appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk with us.
Well, I'm very appreciative of the invitation to be with you.
Thank you. Anytime. You're always welcome back.
Thank you.